Hello and welcome back to the College Football Fanatics Podcast. I am your host, Daniel, and I am here to talk more about news and events happening around college football, coaches, things like that. This episode is going to be a lot more focused on things like recruiting over the past 4 years. Specifically, this episode is going to be Big Ten recruiting. Next episode, we'll be doing SEC recruiting. And then after that, we'll look at like the ACC and the Pac-12 and things like that. So we're also going to talk about Deion Sanders, Coach Prime, who is the head coach over at Colorado University. We're going to talk about some of the more controversial statements he said quite recently in a press conference. It might have been, I don't know how many. It might have been a couple of weeks ago now that he has said those statements. But I'll give you the exact quotes. I'll tell you my thoughts about them. I did talk about this quite in length over on the WIUR radio podcast radio episode over on Monday. I'll see if I can't upload that over to here, but I'm going to pretty much reemphasize what I said over there. I'll go into length about it like I did over there on this episode, so you don't have to go check it out. But I also went over draft profiles of the people who I thought were going to go for the people I thought had the potential to go first overall. So, before we head right into it, like, comment, and subscribe in the down below areas, and I would be immensely grateful if you guys would like to leave a comment saying what I could do better, what I could, things I can improve on. Let me know. I'm more than grateful to hear your opinions. So let's hop right into it after all of that. So Deion Sanders had a press conference, and during that press conference, he was asked. He made a couple of statements, and he said statements about his O-line, his D-line, and his quarterbacks, about the type of home he wanted them to live in and what type of life he wanted them to be living. So I'll read the statements, and then after each statement, I will say my opinion, and then afterwards I'll overall just summarize it, and it'll be pretty easy for you guys to understand. So Deion Sanders says, quote, "O-lineman, I look for dual parent homes, a strong father that they adhere to, smart kid, at least 3.3 quotes, or not quotes, parentheses, GPA, and parentheses, and above." So I understand. Actually, I'll read all of them and then give you my thoughts. So now my quotes. Now my defensive lineman is totally opposite. Single mama, trying to get it. He's on free lunch. I'm talking about just trying to make it. He's trying to rescue mama, end quote. And then for his quarterbacks, he says, quarterbacks are different. We want mother father, dual parent. We want that kid to be 3.5 and up because he got to be smart. Not bad decisions off the field at all because he has to be a leader of men. So that was the last controversial quote that he had in that press conference. I don't know the entire order of those, but I read in what I think. I just read a few articles about it, but this isn't anything that is new to college football. So the idea that he's looking at people in a different way than most college coaches look at players is completely ridiculous. So, because it's like you have at home visits for a reason. You want, as a coach, you want to see how they interact with their parents. You want to see if they have siblings, how do they interact with them. Then you go to the games and you have to watch how do they interact with their teams. If they're losing, how do they interact with their teams, when say they're down by a few touchdowns. Do they keep their teammates' spirits up? Are they joking around a little bit? Are they trying to stand with the coach there and trying to figure out how to come back in a game? If they're winning, are they paying attention? Are they happy with their teammates? How do their teammates react to them? These are all very important things when you're recruiting a kid for the next level. Coach Prime is just the only one that has said this out loud. All of the other major football coaches are all looking at the kids the same exact way that he is. He's just the only one who has the guts to say, this is what I'm looking for. Now, there are exceptions to these. Okay? These are rules, but there are always the exceptions to the rules, okay? And when he talks about the D-line, he wants a guy who's just trying to make it. I get that, because the idea that your mindset growing up affects the way that you live your life is a very real concept. If you have to struggle to survive, that can build a character of a person that you want on your football team. That means that when things get tough, they don't give up. That means when games are in the fourth quarter, you've got 5 minutes left, and it's a slog to pick yourself up after every single play. You understand that person isn't just going to take a knee and be like, oh, I'm exhausted. I don't think I can play anymore. No, he's going to fit that. He's going to continue playing no matter how tired he is. He's going to work hard. He's going to work hard not only on the field but in the weight room as well. So I get what he wants, why he wants players who have had to struggle to help provide for their family. I get that reason. And when he talks about offensive linemen, he said he wants them to be smart. Offensive linemen do have to be smart. I know there's this stereotype that offensive linemen are stupid and they don't get, they don't memorize things. But when you have to remember plays, you have to remember, oh, am I pulling on this? Am I following, say the tackle next to me, so that we can, have our running back run around the outside of the opposite side of the field. They have to remember those things. They can't just sit there and expect that they won't be able to remember those things and everything will be fine. It's not just, oh, I have to block the guy in front of me. Sometimes you're pulling to block a guy that's 4 or 5 defensive men down. Not linemen, but defensive men down. Like, those are things that you have to think through, and you have to understand what the play is trying to create for when there is a situation in a game that you didn't practice for, so that okay, is my quarterback trying to run outside the pocket is it a bootleg type play? Do I have to give him time so that he can throw to, say, the tight end that's running an out route or something like that? That is a serious consideration that you have to do, that you have to think when you are an offensive lineman, okay? You can't sit there, be dumb, and just block the guy in front of you and expect everything to go perfectly. That's not how football works. And especially at a level of college football, where yes, you're not yet at the pros and things are slightly less complicated. These playbooks are, 100 plays, 150 plays, 200 plays long. You have to remember all of those plays. And that's the same thing with the quarterback. You are the person who is out there as a quarterback. You are the person who is out there leading your team. You have to be able to remember each play, So it's like this. You also have to remember the names, because when you have the time and your coach is speaking to you, and sometimes it's loud in these stadiums. You go to Happy Valley and it's whiteout. You're, say, Michigan or Ohio State. You're going into Happy Valley. You're playing Penn State. It is loud at whiteouts. It is not a quiet arena. You're barely going to be able to hear the guy next to you. Sometimes you don't hear your coach. Say you get a couple of words out of what he's saying, you now have to remember which play he wants you to run, because that, especially in high pressure moments, that can make or break a game. Okay. So you as the quarterback have to be able to direct your team, and that requires a certain amount of intelligence. So I understand where Coach Prime is coming from. Could he have said it in a slightly less controversial way? Yes. But honestly, I don't really think this isn't as big a deal as I think a lot of people are really making it out to be. A lot of people have made it out to be like, oh, this is the biggest deal in the world. It really isn't. And this is nothing new or special that Deion Sanders is doing. All right. This is none of that. Like, this has all been done for the past 50 years in college football, because coaches look at things very similar ways to each other. They may have certain, specialties, or they may have certain, larger differences on, where on schemes and stuff like that. But when it comes to recruiting, a lot of coaches follow essentially a similar rubric to each other. I mean, Jim Harbaugh and Ryan Day and Nick Saban and, Kirby Smart, they're all following a very similar rubric. And that is what Deion Sanders is trying to bring to Colorado to make them competitive. Okay, so he's trying to bring them a big-time rubric for recruiting so that they can get these recruits like they have done this past recruiting season, and they can play in these big-time schools and win games. His goal is to win games. It is not to make other people happy. But for the most part, if you're winning games, you're making people happy. So that's all I'm going to say on that. And I think that it's, like I said, it's not that big of a deal, but it's also nothing new. So if people are telling you, Coach Prime is a hater or whatever, he's not. Just ignore all of that, because it is utterly ridiculous. So, all right. And so next up, we're going to talk about Big Ten recruiting. And when I think about recruiting, I don't look at just last year's recruiting class. I look at about 4 years worth of recruiting classes to think, how should I look at a team that, is recruiting? Because it's not one recruiting class that makes or breaks a team. It isn't, and it will never be. You have to have recruits build upon each other. If you have the 160th recruiting class in the country, or 130th recruiting class in the country in 2020, and then and before that it was all around that similar thing, and then in 2021 you have the 100th recruiting class, and then in 2022 you have the 3rd recruiting class. That's not going to change your team. It will win you more games, yes, but it won't bring you to a national championship. And that's a big thing that I look at. So we're going to look at the big recruit, a few of the big recruits from each class at the team that ranked number 1 in the Big Ten according to 24/7 Sports. So in 2019. Michigan ranked number 1. Penn State was number 2. Ohio State was number 3. Nebraska 4. Purdue 5. Wisconsin 6. Michigan State 7. Indiana 8. Iowa 9. Minnesota 10. Maryland 11. Northwestern 12. Illinois 13. And Rutgers was 14. And this was a class where Daxton Hill was the top recruit. He was a 5-star, and Christopher Hinton was also was the second recruit in college football. So you have most of these guys have moved on. You've got names like Giles Jackson, who transferred out of Michigan, but you also have guys like Carson Barnhart and Trevor Keegan, who are still here at Michigan, and Trenton Jones. So it's not all, they're not all gone, but, most of them, or a good number of them, are gone or haven't played. Mike Sanders still was part of this recruiting class. So, it's most of them are gone, and most of them, you probably haven't heard of. Those are just the big names, but you got, Quentin Johnston and Eric All and Mike Morris and DJ Turner and those guys. So, you've got a lot of starters from this past year's team. Zach Charbonnet was a part of this class. So it was a good class. Most of them are probably gone now. So the next, 3 recruiting classes are really going to be where Michigan's bread and butter truly are. So, next up is the 2020 recruiting Big Ten cycle. So it was Ohio State. So Ohio State was number 1. Michigan was number 2. Penn State, number 3, Nebraska 4, Wisconsin 5, Maryland 6, Purdue 7, Iowa 8, Minnesota 9, Michigan State 10, Northwestern 11, Indiana 12, Rutgers 13, and Illinois 14. So Illinois they weren't at the bottom the previous year in 2019, but they were second from the bottom. So Illinois was not doing very good in recruiting. But, Ohio State brought in 3 5-stars, 14 4-stars, and 8 3-stars. And I always make the argument that stars does not always equal production in college football, but it is nice to have higher stars because you're working with a slightly better base talent, but not always. So this is a class where this is actually one of the biggest, one of the big classes. Julian Fleming was in this class. He was the number 1 player in this class. Paris Johnson Jr., an offensive tackle, was in this class. He's in this draft class, I believe, this draft class this year. So Jackson Smith and Jigba also in this draft class. CJ Stroud in this draft class. Let's see who else was here. Mayan Williams was in this draft class. Ty Hamilton also in this draft class. So you really get the feel that this was a draft class that most of which will probably a lot of these players will probably end up either continuing on one more year or they'll end up going to the draft. Like the top, I think it's like 3 of the top 4 players. I can't remember if Jackson Smith and Jigba is in the draft. I believe he is, but I could be wrong. So I think it's only Julian Fleming, the top 4, who's still staying at Ohio State. So it'll be that is the big recruiting class there. So the 2021 recruiting class was even bigger for Ohio State because they had 7 5-stars, 14 4-stars, and 2 3-stars. So it was Ohio State 1, Michigan 2, Wisconsin 3, Maryland 4, Nebraska 5, Penn State dropped down pretty hard to 6, Iowa 7, Minnesota 8, Rutgers 9, Michigan State 10, Northwestern 11, Indiana 12, Illinois 13, and Purdue 14. So you start to tend to see the teams that are doing better right now have recruited better. So it's, Michigan and Ohio State at the top, and but you also see, some teams that haven't done as well as they desired. Nebraska was number 5 in 2021. So it's not like, it's not like this is a surefire sign of, everything's going to be great. It's just you can hedge bets that the teams will be all right. So, and teams like Iowa, who they may not recruit the greatest, but they develop well. They hang somewhere around 8 or 9 most recruiting cycles in this 14 class cycle. So it's in these 14 class cycles. So it's they're right around the midpoint, usually in the mid to lower half. So let's check out some of the Ohio State recruits. So Quinn Ewers, who transferred to Texas. JT Tuimoloau, I believe is how his name is pronounced. I apologize to him if I butchered it. I probably did. Emeka Egbuka, the wide receiver, I believe he is staying another year. Travion Henderson is in this. Kyle McCord, who I believe will be the next Ohio State quarterback, is also in this. Was also in this class. Marvin Harrison Jr. in this class. Let's see who else. Jalen Johnson in this class. So these are classes where you have a lot of really well-known names. And I believe 2021 is also the year that Michigan got J.J. McCarthy. So it's the year they got, J.J. McCarthy and Donovan Edwards and Junior Colson and all of that. So, these classes do make a difference for teams. But I would say that you start seeing those players, a year or two down the line when they become sophomores and juniors more than you do when they are just, freshmen. It's rare to see a true freshman. So this year, this recruiting class, number 2022, is Ohio State once again tops the Big Ten. So it is Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, Michigan State, Indiana, Iowa, Maryland, Rutgers, Purdue, Nebraska, Wisconsin at number 11, Illinois, Northwestern, and Minnesota. So you can see that, Iowa up here at number 6, they did significantly better than the past 3 years. So, you might see these players starting to affect their team, in a year or two. So, I think that it's going to be really interesting. And Ohio State's, some of their huge players, you really don't know the names at all. Like Ohio State's number one player, C.J. Hicks. I believe I think he might have started. I can't remember. Sonny Styles, Devin Brown is number 3, and Kenyatta Jackson was number 4. So you see all these guys, and we'll see. This is this year. So none of them have played a down yet at Ohio State. My bad. I was completely confused. So C.J. Hicks hasn't played it down yet. I think he'll probably, get better, or he'll probably start next year, given that, Ohio State's defense is good, but, he might look even better than what they have right now. I never worry about Ohio State with their talent. I shouldn't say worry, but I'm never concerned about Ohio State having a lack of talent in the same way that I'm concerned about places like Wisconsin having a lack of talent, or even to some extent, until probably Jim Harbaugh came, Michigan having a lack of talent, So, Ohio State will never, I don't believe there will ever be a time where Ohio State truly lacks the talent that top schools get. And it'll be really interesting to see what they can do with it over the next few years, because they had the number. So let's look at the over the last 3 years. What did Ohio State have? So Ohio State had the number 7 class in the country in 2019. They had the number 5 class in the country in 2020, number 2 in 2021. And the number 4 in 2022. So you're recruiting national championship level players consistently. Michigan has been going down recently. They I think they were ranked 17 this year, this past recruiting cycle in 2022. So it'll be fascinating to see where players like C.J. Hicks are in a year's time, and Sonny Styles and it'll be interesting to see. My bad. I was wrong about so these players are actually playing at Ohio State right now, because I just realized I looked at Michigan's 2022 recruits. Will Johnson was a part of them, and he is one of the better freshmen at Michigan. So I get confused with the years, but the argument still holds that never just look at one recruiting cycle. One recruiting cycle will never give you the whole picture of a team. So in the future, I will be going over, I'll be looking at this year's recruiting cycle. I'll be looking at film, the players' films and things like that. If 24/7 Sports has it up. If they don't, I'll look around YouTube, see if I can find them. But I will then, we'll talk about it, and we'll have a lot of things to, I'll have opinions, I should say, on these players. But I really think Penn State is going to really blast out of the gate this upcoming year, and I think Michigan has beat Penn State, and Ohio State has beat Penn State. Both of them have beat them pretty handedly over the past couple of years, and I don't think that that's going to be the case anymore. I think it's going to really shock people just how good Penn State is going to be. I'm really excited to see players like Drew Aller come out and perform. So on Friday, we are going to talk about the SEC. We're also going to be talking about I'm also going to have a list of 10 players that I think are going to break out and be like the face almost of college football next year. And I'm really going to be excited to discuss that with you guys, get your opinions, things like that. So I hope to see you guys all next time. I hope you guys have a great evening or a great day from whenever you are watching this. And I hope to see you guys all at the next episode. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe down below. And I'm really excited that you chose to watch this video to the end. So thank you. And I will see you guys all next time.